Motherfucking mini episode. Mini episode. Motherfucking mini episode.
Yep, there it is. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. There it is. Welcome to another phenomenal, devastating, horny? Is this a horny episode of My Mama Told Me, the podcast where we dive deep into the pockets of black conspiracy theories, and we finally work to prove the theories that you, the listener, have at home. This is it. Are you horny yet? I mentioned it in the original setup. I'm assuming you're the ones that are horny just from hearing the beginning of this podcast. That sweet music comes in and you get rock hard. You get wet with anticipation or whatever other feelings of horniness are. I don't know, your nipples protrude through your shirt because you can't wait to hear what we're going to talk about today on the podcast. And I assure you, it's a good one. We got a message from a person named Terrence. Terrence sent me a message, and I'm going to play it for you now, and it's something worth digging into. Let's see what Terrence had to say.
Hey, what's up, Langston? My name's Terrence. I just want to say, number one, I love the podcast. I love everything
you're
putting out. I think everything you're doing is just amazing. I also want to say that me, probably like you and everyone else listening, is when you hear someone's voice, you immediately have a sense of what they look like. And so I followed the show on social media, and I saw what you look like, and you look nothing like what you sound like. You sound like honestly, I was picturing someone kind of close to Carlton from Fresh Prince, but you're a good looking guy. Congratulations on that. Number three, here's what my conspiracy is. At some point, this has been happening for years and years and years, Hollywood has intentionally emasculated black men by putting them in dresses. And if they're willing to do that, then their career will explode from there. You think about Eddie Murphy, Jamie Foxx, Martin Lawrence. You look at The Rock, even when The Rock was on SNL back in the day, Chris Tucker, Wesley Snipes, Tyler Perry, on and on and on. Hollywood is putting these black men in dresses. And if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to put yourself in that position, if you're willing to become less than intimidating to the masses, then they will give you a career that will explode. And as soon as you say, no, I'm done with that, you become Martin Lawrence in the middle of an intersection, waving a gun, screaming, they're going to kill me. So, Langston, tell me what you think about that one.
Okay, well, Terrence, first of all, what I think is you ain't shit, motherfucker. You ain't shit, and you ain't shit to me. How dare you, Terrence, say that I sound like a Carlton Banks type? Bitch, I've been having sex since I was 15 years old. Ain't nothing dry about my drawers, Terrence, and nothing in my voice should give you that suggestion. I'm terribly self-conscious about the way that I sound, and you've only made it worse, Terrence. You've only made me more self-conscious, and I'll never forgive you for that. If the people at home could see your face, they would know that you have glasses on, and I want to smack them off. I want to smack them off with the hate filling my heart. Now, to your question, and thank you so much for sending this message to me, Terrence. It means the world to me. I just love hearing from you. Anyway, to the question of black men specifically being emasculated, being made less of men by Hollywood when they put them in dresses. This is a pretty long-standing debate, issue, concern that comes up for entertainers like myself. And it's not a simple one to broach, right? The list of successful black actors and celebrities who have worn dresses is pretty extensive. Terrence mentioned a few of them. Eddie Murphy, Jamie Foxx, that nigga from Joanna Man, Larry Johnson, Tyler Perry, Wesley Snipes, all 88 Wayans brothers. They've all worn them. And of course, the most important, sort of like the key person here, Martin Lawrence. Now, the idea of the dress, at least the idea principally of putting black men in dresses as a comedian, seems pretty straightforward. They're sitting there and they're going, big man, little dress equals funny. You know, it's a pretty clear equation. However, the question of who intended to make that joke, who is behind that joke, is really the root of the controversy. I read an article article. I read a thing from a blogger named Daryl James where he referred to this quote unquote gender bending as an effort to create castrated clowns. Castrated clowns. As if clowns this entire time were walking around with hard dicks, just fully erect clowns. You know, all these horny clowns that were out here just squirting water out their lapel and then fucking the shit out of your wife. You know what I mean? Just all these bad boy clowns that have existed this entire time. But apparently they're turning black men into castrated clowns by putting on the dress. Now, the original, at least very public version of this controversy, this conspiracy theory, seems to come from when Dave Chappelle appeared on Oprah. You guys all remember Dave Chappelle goes on Oprah. It talks specifically about the fact that when I believe it was when he was filming Blue Streak, a great film starring Martin Lawrence. Dave Chappelle had a magnificent part in the film, but he talks about having watched the writers and directors and producers all work very, very hard to try to convince Martin Lawrence to put on a dress, despite Martin Lawrence saying, I don't need the dress, I can be funny without a dress, and them being like, yo, you're costing us money, you're ruining our shoot, you're making things terrible by not complying with our want, our effort to put you in a giant dress. Martin Lawrence refuses, it turns into a whole thing. Now, Chappelle, obviously, and let me be clear, Chappelle being the first sort of source that I located, he's not the only one. John Singleton had a bunch of stuff about it. And certainly there's got to be a history of dudes who drink outside of corner stores having kicked around this story, this idea for years before Chappelle or John Singleton even touched it. But Chappelle obviously, most specifically, has a history with sort of this idea of misused intention for jokes, right? He gave up $50 million, a $50 million deal because some white dude on the set decided to laugh at his slave bit in a way that made the slave bit not as fun as other slave bits, if that makes sense. Historically, this type of cross-dressing for black men actually dates all the way back, though, to minstrel shows. Apparently, they were doing this shit all the way back in minstrel shows. And I read some things that suggested that black men who wore dresses were, in fact, the best paid actors in the troupe. That, like, if you wore the dress, you made the big money. And if you were the white man pretending to be the black man wearing the dress, I think you were Brad Pitt of that day. I don't really understand how minstrel math works. I'm going to have to find a real old calculator and type upside down. I bet when you type upside down on a minstrel calculator, it just spells out, nigga, how you learn math? You know what I mean? Instead of boobs, it just said, nigga, put this down. I have fun. I read an article. This is a really important quote that I want us to dig into. And I say us as if you're an equal participant in this, but you're not. You're just a listener at home. And so you, the listener, will hear me read this quote. And I think it's worth us sort of like doing this together. And this is a quote from a Salon article I read on this very subject, where they said, if the humor in minstrelsy arises in part from the reversal of class aspirations, then white men adopting the comic appearance of black women represents the ultimate topsy-turvy world. We consider upward mobility natural, even if we frown on strategies for advancement that include, say, passing for white. But downward mobility is crazy. And so a black man who plays the role of a black woman is also taking part in the ridicule of people who in some respect lie further down the social pecking order in terms of gender, if not economic power, mimicking discrimination by whites against people of color. And so what this article is saying in sort of layman's terms is saying that a black man putting on the dress is then shooting downwards at black women with an effort to service white humor. It's, again, complicated minstrel math that I'm not exactly great at, but I think I understand the principle. We're shooting at our own people for the sake of entertaining people who already don't like us. Here's my problem with a lot of social critique that comes out of stuff like this, is that these people who are doing the social critique are very smart and very thoughtful and very considerate of a lot of historical things, but they also are not fucking funny. They're never funny. Not one of these people who writes this article is ever like a fun dude to talk to at a party. It's always some dork who's correcting the way that you pronounce the word and asking you if pace salsa is appropriating real salsa from Mexican. And it's like, I don't know, man. This is what they put out. I like pace. I would have preferred medium, but they got mild. And here we are. I'm just going to eat pace picante. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, what they're doing often is dismissing jokes for the sake of citing injustice. And is minstrelsy fucked up? Absolutely. I don't want people to walk away from this presuming that I'm real into white dudes dressing up in blackface. Minstrelsy is fucked up, absolutely. But were there funny jokes that came out of it? Probably. I don't know. I don't go back and watch white devils do that thing. But there had to have been more underneath the show than just putting on the makeup. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made the stage, right? We wouldn't have seen these performances. They wouldn't have created the celebrity of that era that it created. All I'm saying is that humor is not eliminated simply because humans are grotesque. That's not how comedy works. Trump is a terrible person. This is a great example. Terrible human being. One of the worst, top 5 worst people I can think of if I had to make a list. You know what I mean? It's like Trump and probably one of my middle school teachers. I didn't care for Mr. Thompson one bit, but they're pretty high. It's fucked up human being, but by far, and I stand behind this argument, by far, he is the funniest president we've ever had. There's no one even comes close. Pound for pound, that Fanta face bitch is hilarious. He cracks me up, and it's not because I think he's good or I empathize with him, but simply because of the setup punchline of his choices. He's a funny motherfucker, and there's something dangerous in us pretending like humor doesn't exist simply for wanting to prove something correct or incorrect. That's not how this works. That doesn't mean you have to consider somebody a good or bad person, but you can't just eliminate funny simply because you don't like something. The more dangerous element of this conspiracy theory, if we really want to unpack what's wrong in all of this, it's the way that this conspiracy theory correlates masculinity with heterosexuality, right? It presumes that the only way that you can be masculine is to maintain masculine traits. You have to maintain these sort of heteronormative traits when in fact, we know that that's not the case. If Young Thug has taught us anything, it's that you can be a very successful murderer in a tasteful off-the-shoulder gown. You know what I mean? You can keep an AK and an A-line. You can do them both. You know what I mean? And the premise of a man in a dress is an antiquated idea. We shouldn't be mad at black men in dresses because we think that this is Hollywood trying to emasculate us. We should be mad at black men in dresses because it's an old hacky bit. It existed all the way back when minstrel shows existed. This isn't new fucking material. And unfortunately, because of Hollywood and its primarily white run spaces, the writers, the directors, the producers, because white people have been the people primarily in charge in Hollywood, they also are the people who have the ability to shape how we're seen out in the world. And it's not always because they're being malicious and trying to emasculate us. I think in a lot of ways, it's because they have no vision for how black people can be funny beyond some old shit that they've always done with us. They don't know how black people can be funny in a modern age. So they put us in dresses. They have very little respect for our bodies and even less respect for our words. And so naturally, a dress feels like a simple solution to a much larger problem. Now, why is it that the black men in dresses then get elevated? It's simple, because white people don't want you to argue back with them. They don't want you to push against their ideas. So when a black man goes and says, I do not want to wear that dress, he is labeled as difficult or not complying, and then subsequently replaced by somebody who's much more willing to put on pantyhose. Is it fucked up? Absolutely. Is this some sort of master conspiracy to emasculate? Probably not. I think it's just a bunch of white people who don't have a lot of patience for black people who care about themselves. You know what I mean? Who truly have any sense of where their sense of humor comes from. They don't care for that one bit. And so they fire us or they, limit our potential out in the world. It's still fucked up and it's still a pretty dangerous conspiracy. But I don't necessarily want to give too much power to what feels like a bunch of old niggas being mad that a few of our heroes had to put on dresses at different eras in television. Anyway, all right, this one feels the least like I went conspiratorial. And in that way, I feel like I'll let you guys down. Usually I go down that train, baby, and I say, yeah, the government's sending out raccoons and teaching them to dance in your yards. And that's why your grass won't grow. Like weird shit. I'm down to clown, but, I get in trouble enough from listeners at home who are afraid that I'm mildly homophobic, and I'm not going to go back on this one. You're not going to get me in trouble on this one. I love the gays. It's Pride Month. And for the sake of pride, this part of the rant is probably undoing all the good work that I did before. The point is, masculinity does not have to be correlated with heterosexuality. It merely has to be correlated with how a man sees himself. And unfortunately, Hollywood does not see us. And so subsequently, we are often eliminated from that conversation. Damn, I really nailed it right with that. I probably shouldn't keep talking. If you want to talk to me and get me in trouble with your theories on what makes a man, please send those theories to mymommapod@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Even more important, not more important, equally important, I would love for you to review our podcast and write comments, beautiful comments, glowing comments, or even bigoted comments. I'm fine with any of them. I just want to see what you have to say. So many warm comments have been coming in, and so many warm comments can be coming in the future. I don't know why I lowered my voice. That made it sexual in a way that you probably didn't care for, and neither did I. So I'm going to leave. Bye, bitch.
Motherfucking mini episode. Mini episode. Motherfucking mini episode. Motherfucking mini episode. Mini episode. Motherfucking mini episode.